welcome back to Shut Up and Ball. I am Aaron Chow, accompanied by my co-host John Harris, as always, and we're back to share our thoughts, reactions, etc. to Super Bowl 58, which between the Chiefs and Niners. It was obviously we'll dive into the game in a second. It was an interesting game. Of course, I think it was, I would say all time. I don't think all time great. I don't know how you felt just overall game wise. Slow first half. I mean, I didn't mind it, but I know others didn't like it. Literally had someone at my watch party. I don't know if I mentioned this. He fell asleep in the. I mentioned this to you off camera last night, but someone at a watch party, he fell asleep in the third quarter. And then luckily woke up with about 6 minutes left in the fourth when things got really spicy there. Although I missed a good portion of the game, but how was the game overall for you in terms of overall standing, team wise?
I really enjoyed it. I do enjoy seeing some good defensive football, and I think that unlike the Patriots Rams one, where obviously a lot of people disliked that one because it was 13-3. This one had a good mix of both. I felt like the first half was really defensive. The second half, we finally saw the offenses get going, and then we got overtime, which was cool with the new overtime rules. So yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was a very entertaining game. I agree. I wouldn't say it was one of the all-time great games because it didn't really have that many crazy moments outside of OT pretty much, but I thought it was still a really good game.
Yeah, not a lot of explosive plays. I mean, there's really, I think the biggest play was the Mecole Hardman, 50-yard catch, but then they fumbled the two plays later, so it didn't even amount to anything.
I remember when I think it was in the overtime drive for the Niners, McCaffrey had that 25-yard reception out of the backfield, and I remember the broadcast saying that was the longest play the Niners had all game, and I was like, wow, I didn't even really realize that in the moment because 25 yards is not that's obviously a big play, but that's as your longest play, that's not that big.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, let's dive into the game itself, of course. So in case you didn't watch or didn't know, hey, maybe some people fell asleep, in overtime because this game, once again, was kind of late for some. Chiefs win 25-22 over the San Francisco 49ers. We mentioned game winning overtime with the new overtime rules where as long as both teams basically get a chance to possess the ball to score. The Buffalo Bills rule that they added, ironically, because as we remember from that game, Bills didn't get the ball. Chiefs went right down and scored in the playoffs, and many felt that Buffalo, both teams should have a chance. But ironically, this is the first game since then, of course, at Kansas City. But I guess you want to start with that conversation. I don't know, because obviously there's all this hullabaloo today. Hey, Niners, many of the players and maybe even coaching staff didn't know the rules, while the Chiefs were oh yeah, we knew, had it. So any thoughts on that, especially I guess the decision to receive first, John?
I do think that the whole report of all the players not knowing the rule, or not all, some of the players not knowing the rules, is somewhat irrelevant because, as we talked about when we were talking about that earlier today, the only really important part is, number one, Fred Warner needs to know because he's the one that went to the midfield as the captain. And then even technically, he probably doesn't need to know as long as the coaches, and I'm assuming this happens no matter what. I'm assuming for both the Chiefs and the Niners, the coaches said, if we win the coin toss, this is what we want. If we lose the coin toss, this is what we want. Mm-hmm. As simple as that. You don't need to explain them to the rules. It's just if we win the coin toss, we want the ball or we want to defer. That's it. So yeah, I don't think that it really matters. But for the decision to take the ball first, I definitely I understand both sides because at first I was like, wow, that's very surprising considering the rule change where you can get both teams get a chance to score. But I do somewhat understand it because in the hypothetical scenario that let's say the Niners score a touchdown, then the Chiefs also have to score a touchdown. Now the Chiefs have the advantage of being able to choose if they want to go for two or not to end the game right there. But let's say they don't, they also kick the extra point. It's a tie game, or Niners kick the field goal as they did, and the Chiefs also kick a field goal. It's a tie game there. After that, it's sudden death. So first score wins, and the Niners would be getting the ball first in that scenario. So there is some advantage to going first if you think that you are very evenly matched and you think that whatever we score, we can hold that team to that same score. But as I put it in our group chat, when you're going against Patrick Mahomes, I thought it was a little foolish to take the ball first and take the field goal. I understand that your defense largely has had a good day, but it's one of those things where in the Super Bowl against two legends like Mahomes and Andy Reid, and three legends actually, because Kelsey had a really big impact on that final drive too. So three legends like that, I would want to know what my offense has to do in order to make sure that if they score the touchdown, we are playing 4-down territory. We have to answer. Like, that's the way, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I would want to approach it. I understand the advantage of then if you do match them, the Kansas City Chiefs get the ball first, but I would rather take that risk and see what our defense does in that first drive, because maybe we hold them to a field goal and then you have the advantage where you can try and go and score the touchdown. I don't know. There's just a couple like different areas there where I'm like, facing the Chiefs, Mahomes, there's just no way that I would want to take the ball first and settle for a field goal, because it just feels like you're setting him up for a legendary moment in his career that we're all going to look back on and be like, yep, they gave him a chance to win the game. And I just wouldn't want to be able to do that. So yeah, I see both sides, but just given the context of who you're playing against, and this is not a shot at Brock Purdy, but he's a second-year quarterback. He's young. I personally wouldn't say he's much of a game changer. He has good moments, but I don't necessarily see him as someone that is going to go out there. Like, when the Niners took the ball first, I did not personally have faith that they were going to score a touchdown. I did think that they could get in field goal range, but it felt like getting the ball in the end zone was a little bit of a struggle. They did get that one McCaffrey touchdown early, but that was like a trick play. But other than that, like, the Chiefs defense was kind of on fire. So yeah, that was a little bit of a long way to say I didn't really agree with the Niners' decision.
Yeah, and honestly, I just want to state this. I'm with you. Like, in objective sense, yes, I would have deferred if I, we're arguing. But I will say, just devil's advocate, I love to play that. If you take things in perspective of the game too, like, I get it, like you mentioned, because I wanted to add for, hey, maybe Kyle Shanahan's concerned because, man, my defense was just out there. You know, I had to just do a 2-minute drill where and then Chiefs have had success in recent drives, even outside of the muffed punt that set up the touchdown. They've been settling for field goals. So that's where I kind of get it. But hey, maybe once again too, Chiefs defense. I don't know if you remember even the last couple of Niners drives, because they were starting to get a little bit tired, and I mean Romo mentioned it, and a little banged up. Karlaftis, got banged up in and out and such. But like you mentioned, ultimately, like you said it perfectly. Like, in regards to, you'd rather know what you have to do in that sense, as opposed to like you mentioned, like what happened really is, okay, he settled for a field goal, and they come down, score a touchdown, because they know they can settle for a field goal, but they can also still go for the jugular right here with the touchdown. So
right. And I think that I want to add on to your point too, and I forgot to say this, of why I also maybe understand the Niners' perspective, is you also got to think of, like, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm not saying this was actually happening with Brock Purdy, I don't know, but let's say that, like, maybe he's still a little nervous, or you can kind of feel like the moment is maybe kind of getting to him. Having them go first, I think personally comes off as less pressure for the offense, because, like, if you score a field goal, you put points on the board, and there's an avenue for you to win the game through your defense by preventing the Chiefs from scoring altogether, or holding them also to a field goal, and then you get the ball back again. So to whereas if, like, the Chiefs go down, they get the ball first, and they score a touchdown, it's like winner. It's like you got to score a touchdown to go home. Like, this is put up or shut up time, and a lot more of the pressure is on Purdy and that offense than maybe there was going first. So yeah, I can see both sides. But yeah, I just, from my perspective, considering also how highly I respect Kyle Shanahan, I do think that if they got the ball second and they knew the Chiefs had scored that touchdown, that he would have really emptied the playbook and they would have come out really aggressive and maybe tied it up. Who knows?
Yeah, and so yeah, this will lead to my next, I guess, topic of discussion, because I'm already seeing, and I saw in one group chat, seeing on social media, so basically double checked it for me. Some people were a little bit upset that they weren't as patient with the run in the third quarter, and just before I throw it to you, just from what I saw, once again,
Talking about the Niners, that is?
The Niners, excuse me,
Okay.
the Niners, yes, because they had, both, especially after, as we all had the Mahomes pick, you're near midfield. I think this is where, like, for me, my MVP of the game, if I had to give it to anybody, it would be Steve Spagnuolo, because like that seemed, especially after the interception, it seemed like, oh man, like that may be the nail in the coffin if the Niners can at least put points. Because even going into the half, I think I mentioned in our group chat too, I was like, man, 10-3, and you alluded to this too, like, oof, 10-3, the Niners should be beating them by more. It should be more, and obviously, they had McCaffrey fumble on that first really good drive they had, and after that, though, yeah, it seemed like Spags had a good feel to slow them down, but for me, at least from what I saw, I wish I could double check, go back and confirm this, but Super Bowl, so it's like there's not a lot of replays of it, even the site that I used to use, so I'll have to wait a couple days probably, but it seemed like from what I recall, especially later in the game though, Chiefs just seemed to Spag, they had a lot of creative blitzes, and they also kind of, especially like I said, in that third quarter, because the Niners had to pass a lot too, kind of scared the Niners out of running the ball by just numbers, it seemed like. But yeah, did you have any thoughts in regards to that? Or did you feel otherwise?
I didn't feel like there was like a lack of patience with the run game. Honestly, I thought that the Niners called a really good game. It was back and forth. You look at the first half, you would say the Niners won that. Like, if you remove the McCaffrey fumble, the Niners like dominate that first half. They probably score like at least a field goal on that drive, and they're feeling really strong going into halftime. They did come out a little slow in the second half, in that third quarter specifically, but in the fourth quarter, they kind of answered. They got that, next touchdown drive. So I don't think that I was super critical of the play calls. And also, in terms of the run game, I agree. The Chiefs played it super well. It felt like their defensive line was playing really strong throughout the entire game, not only against the run, but against the pass. And, I mean, McCaffrey, he had 22 carries. Like, that's a very healthy workload for him, on top of the fact that you add in 2 from Elijah Mitchell, 3 for Deebo Samuel, 1 for Kyle Juszczyk. Like, you ran the ball almost 30 times, not including Brock Purdy's runs, because I don't think any of them were designed off the top of my head. But you ran the ball almost 30 times. Like, I don't feel like there was necessarily like meat left on the bone, if you will, in terms of the ground game, because the Chiefs held them really well. Like, McCaffrey too, he had 22 carries for 80 yards. That's 3.6 yards per carry. His longest run was 11 yards. Like, he wasn't really getting explosive plays. A lot of their runs, for the most part, were like, they'd get 2-3 yards, maybe a 6-yard carry every now and then. But I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with the criticism that the Niners weren't patient with the run game, because I thought they ran it a lot throughout the game. But it wasn't really dominant like you would maybe want it to be. I thought they had a good balance, personally.
Yeah, and like I really wanted to go back and check, because like I know, like the first play from that interception, they did pass, it was incomplete, and then unfortunately they got a penalty, a false start, so now it's 2nd 15, and they're now not as favorable. Then it was 3 and out from there, they incomplete, and then Purdy got like a 4-yard scramble on 3rd and 15, so they then punted. Which also, by the way, just a little bit of a shout out to the punters, by the way, because I think especially Townsend. I remember, I forget which one, but it was one of those early punts. It was when the Chiefs were backed up by 1.2.
Yeah.
Like, it was almost, I felt like an 80-yard, but he literally completely reversed the field. Like, it was like he was punting from like the 10, and like they downed it at like the Niner 10 as well, which also was a, I think, interesting stat. I think that there was no run backs off like I think kicks. So that was kudos to the special teams, which is I think next part that I think people are overseeing because a lot of blame's being placed on
Well, real quick,
Kyle.
before we move on, I just want to add on the run part too. Just going through their drives after halftime, because you said that like you were hearing it kind of about the criticism like after halftime, right?
Yeah.
Their first drive, they went 3 and out. It was
that's the drive I just explained.
Yeah, they throw the pass, then they get the false start, so they're backed up 2nd and 15. So they throw the ball, another incomplete pass, then the scramble. The next drive after that, they throw a pass for -8 yards because it was like a screen that got completely blown up. And then once that happens, like it's 2nd and 18. Like, are you going to establish the run? Like, you get he's averaging 3.5 yards per carry. Like, you're going to run the ball for 4 yards? There's just no way on 2nd and 18. So then they throw, and then they get 7 yards, and it's 3rd and 11. You throw again, like so, and then the drive after that. The first play, they ran the ball. It was McCaffrey up the middle for no gains. So now you're in 2nd and 10, and they throw it 3rd and 10. You got to throw it again. Like, and then the next drive after that was the touchdown drive. I don't think anybody's going to criticize that one. The drive after that was the field goal drive, and then it was the end of the half. So really, the only drives that I think you could criticize their inability to run the ball would be the first 2. And once again, that's probably just because they threw the ball on first down. But like, it feels like they're critiquing in hindsight. Like, if they complete those plays on first down and all of a sudden it's like 2nd and 4, I don't think anybody would be critiquing those. It's like, that's what I'm saying, is they're nitpicking on like 2 or 3 plays, honestly.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and then just another stat I want to add, like in the second half, McCaffrey's longest run was 8 yards too. So it's not like they were just gashing them in the second half. Kansas City made adjustments, and kind of like similar to last year in Philly, where they just kind of started selling out, as we saw some great defensive plays from Trent McDuffie, the Jarius Sneed. Like those guys should be earning more respect. Yeah. And people they're 2 really good corners. I know Chris Jones is amazing too. We've been reveling about him pretty much the past 24 hours. I mean, we have been for a while, but yeah, like he was also just like a game breaker. So it's just like, yeah, it was. I mean, we mentioned I mentioned that also. It was unfortunate for them, but for the Niners, that last they're taking their last offensive play in overtime. It was that 3rd and 4, right near the goal line where Chris Jones blew up the play. And I put in our group chat. I went back. That was one of the few plays I could go back and watch because it's a quote unquote highlight play. And yeah, no one blocked Chris Jones. And obviously they didn't intend to do that. I think that just goes to show Spags' brilliance and how much he was stressing their pass protection coverages with the different blitzes he was sending. Was that, I think if I recall quickly too, there's showing guys on the left side. So maybe, Purdy was sliding protection. But yeah, right guard and right tackle, no one accounted. Like they literally both doubled not Chris Jones, and then Chris Jones got a free rush. And it was fortunate because I think Romo pointed out Juwan Jennings possibly open for the first down or at least a touchdown maybe. So it seemed like that, and he was also cooking, by the way. So shout out to him as well. He was at first we were memeing about it because of the little trick play pass he mentioned, touchdown, and then he also had a couple key 3rd downs and had a touchdown later. It's like, man, Juwan Jennings might be the MVP, Super Bowl MVP here, but unfortunately, obviously, they didn't win. But sorry, just an extension in regards to that, though. It was tough sledding when running the ball for the Niners.
And also, I mean, we can't ignore the fact that like there was that the muffed punt situation that happens where that leads to the Chiefs getting a touchdown. At that point in the game, the second half starts, it was
the toss back to Pacheco. They drops on the first play, so it's like lose 10 yards. Right.
Even before that, Mahomes throws the pick, right? Like
that was the same. That was 2 plays later.
No, this was the interception was the first play or the first drive of the second half.
Yeah, first drive. Sorry, but I meant but before the interception, it also sucked because literally first play of the half is when he pitched it back to Pacheco and dropped it. They lost off rip, already lose 5 yards. Right. This is not the start we wanted. Sorry, you're right.
But what I was meaning to say is the criticism of the Niners, just the way the game was going, because people were criticizing their run. The flow of that second half was Mahomes throws the interception, the Niners punt the ball, the Chiefs punt the ball, the Niners punt the ball, the Chiefs get a field goal, the Niners punt the ball, the Chiefs punt the ball. So it's like, the only thing that has happened in 6 or 7 drives here is the Chiefs getting that 1 field goal drive, and then all of a sudden, boom, the muffed punt happens, and the Chiefs scored a touchdown, and they've taken the lead now. And it's like the way that game was flowing, both defenses was playing great. The offenses didn't really have a feel for each other, and then the floodgates open right there, and the Niners immediately respond with a touchdown. So the reason I bring that up is to say, like, maybe if they don't muff that, considering what the Niners were able to do, and who knows, maybe like motivated them or whatever. But it seems like Kyle had kind of figured something out that very next drive. So if they don't muff the punt, who's to say they don't go drive down and score there, and they're all of a sudden up 17-6, assuming Jake Moody makes the extra point, because he didn't end up making it in the actual drive. But even then, you're up 16-6. So that muffed punt, I think, it just changed the game in a really big way, to where, once again, I don't blame the way that the game was called, because I thought both teams were kind of going back and forth. Boom, that mistake happens, and then what could have been a massive Niners lead turns into a very tight game.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off that too a little bit more. Like, yes, you mentioned the muff. First off, the muff punt. Like, that's just also unfortunate. It wasn't even like he was trying to, just trying to tell his guy to, Peter, like, don't go get away, but it just happened to strike his foot, and a little bit of error on Ray McLeod, as even I know Shan Sharp and others, we mentioned, like, hey, you got to fall on that. You can't try to be the hero and scoop, but
right.
That's easier said than done, of course. And then also in regards to special teams, obviously the blocked extra point came in huge, because otherwise Chiefs would have had to have scored a touchdown on that final drive, and who knows if they absolutely would have. Yeah, that's just all these little things, unfortunately, adding up is what kind of just added up to the Niners losing the game. Obviously, Chiefs earned it. As we mentioned, their defense was awesome as a whole, and I mean their team was obviously too, but the defense, like you mentioned, really just keeping them within striking distance, which is kind of the formula that they've figured out ever since that terrible loss on Christmas. Was they've kind of embraced that, okay, like, it's okay if we have 5 straight, 3 and outs or 5 non-scoring drives. Like, as long as our defense keeps us within striking distance, Mahomes can, and the offense, they'll find a way to generate a drive or 2, or like we saw at the end of this game, or 3 to finish out the game. So it's kudos to the Chiefs, of course. Anything else you wanted to throw into overall or special teams wise?
This isn't really, I mean, it's somewhat related to the game, but kind of an interesting thought that I was having is, does this maybe put Spags as like the greatest defensive coordinator ever? And I only say that because, and I'm not talking like guys like Bill Belichick, right? Who, like, they were a DC who became a head coach. Like, I'm talking the people who them as DCs, because not only has he won the 3 Super Bowls with the Chiefs, he won one with the Giants as well in, what was it, 2008? So I don't know. I don't know other people off the top of my head that would be considered like career DCs, but it's just an interesting thought, because 4 Super Bowls as a defensive coordinator is pretty crazy. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and like, I mean, that's at least in our lifetime, I would have to agree. And once again, I'm trying to rack my brain, because it's unfortunately the only other great defensive mind was really Belichick, but like you mentioned, he's the head coach. So because
I mean, like, I'm thinking, who was the guy that was he was former Lions coach, Eagles DC, the one Super Bowl with them, Jim
Schwartz.
Yeah, maybe.
And now he's in Cleveland. This was his first year in Cleveland, so
So he's had some good defenses, but I don't think he really has the rings to match up. I think he's only got that one, right? So
yeah, he's only got that one.
Dan Quinn, he was really instrumental with a lot of modern day defenses, but he also only has the Seattle one. And he also, depending on what happens in Washington, maybe he doesn't get considered a career DC. But other than that, I don't know of anyone that I can think of off the top of my head that's considered like a career defensive coordinator that matches up like that.
Yeah, there'll probably be someone from like the 80s or that watched 80s or 90s religiously that would maybe shout out to us or something. Because otherwise, I like you're right. Like, I don't know. And like we've alluded to, like, man, Spags, like, it was just like last year, like, just a great called game, knew when to take chances. Like, also like the Trent McDuffie, that one pass breakup he had on a blitz, like, that was a thing of beauty, because that led to, I believe, one of their field goals, and as we all saw, there was an open slant behind him. But just great job of McDuffie getting his hands up as well, and just once again another beautiful call and just coaching, because you see pre-snap that McDuffie's like no way, he's not showing no signs of like blitzing. He's even backing, like took a step back or two, but just timed it perfectly and made a great play. So obviously great play by him, but great call by Spags. In those situations, so yeah, definitely it'll be interesting, because if they have another great year next year, like I'll be interested. Like, will teams try to reach out to him to try to be, if he wants to be a head coach? Because
that's the weird part, is that like he was a head coach before. He was the Rams head coach for 3 years, I think it was, like after that Giants Super Bowl, but he hasn't really had like any head coaching opportunities since then. So I don't know. Could be interesting.
I think the only other one was he was interim the year that why am I blanking on his name? But
it was
a McCarthy disciple.
Was it Ben McAdoo?
Ben McAdoo. Yep. It was Ben McAdoo years.
It's tough
because they had that great defense too, though, with the New York pass defense.
It's tough because the Giants during that kind of era, like now like on their current pre-Dayball, had like a list of like kind of just scrub coaches, Joe Judge and McAdoo and Pat Shurmur and all these guys who just they didn't end up working out.
Yeah, damn. Fortunate Giants catching a stray here, but it's a great call. So hey, maybe Chiefs got to throw a little bit extra dough Spags' way, make him the highest paid defensive coordinator. I don't know if that's like a public information or something, but Spags, big reason why they're doing this, and it'll be interesting to see going into this offseason. Chiefs, both teams have a little bit of cap space. I'm really focusing on the Chiefs here though, because L'Jarius Sneed, free agent, and he'll need to be re-signed, as well as Chris Jones. But like we've mentioned before, somehow, some way, kudos to the Chiefs accounting department. They're probably going to find a way to talk to Patrick, talk to Travis. Hey guys, just restructure these so we can give Chris and maybe L'Jarius Sneed. Like I said, we'll see if they have to pick one or the other. I'm not too in tune with NFL financials or what they're asking for, but they're obviously probably going to try to keep both of those, or one or the other, but probably Chris Jones, I'm guessing. Which is who you prioritize.
Yeah, probably. And I will say too, that Mahomes has done this before. He's restructured to free up money for people. Apparently, he's already willing to do it again. So, Mahomes, and his interview immediately after, Mahomes very much seems like he is. I don't know what his personal goals are, but it seems like the way that I'm reading it is he wants to pass Brady in rings. Like that's kind of how I'm seeing it. Because they asked about Brady, and he specifically said that it'd be tough for him to maybe ever pass him because Brady beat him in the Super Bowl. They've already won 3, and immediately after they're asking him about it, and he's like, "Yeah, we're not done yet. We're gonna celebrate tonight, but we're ready to go get it next year again." And I'm like, you just won the Super Bowl, man. Like you just established yourself as like a dynasty. People are already starting to talk about Mahomes as like a top 5 quarterback of all time. All these kind of conversations are happening, and he's like 28 years old, and his focus is immediately like, "Yep, we're gonna try and win it again next year." So, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see Mahomes take a pretty hefty pay cut, try to get people re-signed. Like I said, he's already done it before, and I think he knows the importance too of, you can get your money, but it might come at the cost of winning, unfortunately.
Yeah, and even it's just kind of, it feels like, especially once, it's been all the stats, and like you mentioned, it's only his 6th year. Like it's like he's kind of, I would say, coming numb to his greatness, but like he's like chasing more. Yeah, it's like the pure competitor, kind of like how Brady was too. So it'd be interesting to see how it all just falls going forward. And a little bit of relation to that, it's just, I still think it's funny. And hey, maybe they should send him a ring too. And let me pull up the trade. But Tyreek Hill like chose the bag over two. I don't know, who knows if they win these next, still win, but chose the bag, and kind of helped Kansas City, I guess, help invest in the future with, if I'm recalling, they got Trent McDuffie off one of the picks that Miami traded I'm trying to get the full trade. I'll get that in a second. But
And I mean, even just on that point, think about the contrast between Mahomes is willing to take less money in order to keep people, and Tyreek, he wanted the money. And I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with either one, but you see the results of both of them. Tyreek, you get bounced in the first round, you're a wild card team, and Mahomes and the Chiefs, they keep rolling. Now, it did take them redefining themselves a couple times, which I did want to add to. I wanted to say this at the very beginning. I find it super interesting that technically the Patriots did it 2 separate times, but since free agency was brought into the NFL, because prior to free agency, dynasties were far more common. It felt like there was a dynasty every decade. The Cowboys in the 90s, their dynasty ends with the introduction of free agency. The Niners, like their dynasty, the Steelers, all these different kinds of teams, right? But since free agency has been a thing, really it was just the Patriots. They did it 2 separate times, but still the same, like quarterback, coach, owner, all those kind of things. So people kind of view that as more of one. But now the Chiefs have been the second franchise to actually successfully do it. And I do think it's just so interesting how different when you look at the first Super Bowl they won to this one. The first one, their wide receiver room was stacked. Like they had obviously Travis Kelce at tight end, but then you got Tyreek, you got Sammy Watkins, who was still really good back then. Like you had some really great weapons for Mahomes all around.
Was a solid 3.
Yeah, he was really solid. Like it was a really great offensive unit. You had some defensive guys who were key. Their defense wasn't that great, but they were really strong against the pass. But you had some like super key guys like Tyrann Mathieu who was involved. And now like you fast forward and all of a sudden completely different. Like the receiver room is probably the weakest point on the team. They completely overhauled the offensive line, which has become a strength for them. The defense has been massively overhauled just pretty much around Chris Jones, where you have all this new blood like Justin Reed and Trent McDuffie and Nick Bolton and all these different kind of guys. L'Jarius Sneed, George Karlaftis. Yeah, he's been great too for them. So, I mean, you just have a lot of new blood, and it's very interesting how like a modern day dynasty is so much built on you got to be creative with the cap. You got to be willing to adjust. Like this kind of feels like the blueprint moving forward. We're not going to see teams where you just keep the same unit for like 5-6 years and you just win a bunch, because that's just not realistic in the NFL, because you get situations like Tyreek Hill where guys want their money and that's just not how it works. Can't really afford to keep everybody. So kudos to the Chiefs front staff is kind of the point I'm trying to make, because although Mahomes gets all the credit and he rightfully deserves it, that front staff was very instrumental in making sure that they are able to continue to compete like this.
And you mentioned the Patriots, like that's what helped with them. They were converting, they got Gronkowski in the second round, and he was a beast, and they got all these, I'm sure insert Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, like all these other guys. They just found value in them. Were able to make good on those quote unquote lower investments. Right. Because the linebackers, Willie Gay, I think Bolton was like a 3rd or 4th round pick. Gay was like a 2nd rounder. Obviously McDuffie was a late 1st rounder, which was from the Tyreek trade. Even Chris Jones, like he was a 2nd round guy. He wasn't this highly. I think he was deemed highly talented at the time, but he had, I guess, motor was like a concern. But obviously that's no longer an issue and such. So yeah, like you mentioned, like just kudos to that front staff for building the team. Like it's one of those things that we've always pushed. Like it's not always like you say the quarterback wins are not a quarterback stat and such. I know I butchered that. And like it's build a team. Like that Philadelphia team that won or got to the Super Bowl last year was a really good team. That's and they only fell off this year. But then even the team where I won with Carson Wentz / Nick Foles, like that was a really good team built all the way around. Even that Bucs team that beat Mahomes, and remember that it's like, man, that defense was had a great year that year, and then obviously Brady was killing it in the offense, and they even had revived Leonard Fournette that seat for that one more season. So yeah, like this goes to show, build a team around him. Looking at you, Buffalo teams like Buffalo and such, build a team around your quarterback, and then you can give him the big money. And then if you're good enough, you'll find value in the draft and maybe some free agents. So.
Yeah, and I bring that up too, just because I was thinking about it afterwards of like, Mahomes is obviously going to get a ton of credit, and I don't want to take that away from him, but I do think that there's been other quarterbacks that, in my opinion, have been just as talented, just as good, all time great kind of guys, and they weren't able to accomplish what Mahomes was because maybe they didn't have the same mindset in terms of taking less money, or their GM wasn't as good, or they didn't have as great of a coach, or whatever. Like even you would know that with Aaron Rodgers. Like, I think that a lot of people would have expected Aaron Rodgers' career to have more Super Bowl wins, but it's just not how it turns out because not everybody has everything the Chiefs do. And so with the NFL, it's the ultimate team sport for a reason. Like, the only way you become a dynasty these days is a lot has to go right. A lot has to go right.
Yeah, gotta get a little bit lucky, and sometimes when you build these, but for the most part, it's just finding these gems slash because even Mahomes, remember, they traded up when they had Alex Smith. They were aggressive. Like, that's a Chiefs front office, very good blend of being aggressive but knowing when to let go of your assets. Tyreek Hill, a bunch of other, even Tyrann Mathieu. Because I remember there was some hullabaloo like, oh, they just let Tyrann Mathieu walk, but they found guys like Justin Reed and such to fill in. So it's like we've mentioned too in our group chats, just to kind of tie a ribbon on this. It's scary because they could very well. I know it's early, but man, 3-peat is looking like it's not crazy, unless something crazy happens. But it's. I mean, I don't think it's disputable to cut into, but obviously I think they're a dynasty. You can call it that, especially when you repeat,
they got
like you mentioned.
Rings. Like, when you get 3 rings, you're a dynasty.
When you get 3 and 5, and one of them's back to back, and you're in 4 of the last 5, and like also the other crazy stat, like, isn't Mahomes and like has never had anything worse than an AFC Championship game. Like, he's made at least the AFC Championship game every year that he has been starting. Yeah. Like, damn, that's like you mentioned. Yes, at the beginning, and which is also crazy to think that you put your entire team on him. Like like you mentioned, at first it was the high flying offense with Tyreek Hill and them, and then now it's morphed into, okay, Patrick, you just got to be surgical, pick and choose when we can be aggressive, and we'll just lean on our defense and Isaiah Pacheco and the run game, at times. So, and for the Niners, they have cap space too. I think though that they have to I would assume that they have to save some of that to re-sign Brandon Ayuk here soon. I don't have to worry about Brock Purdy because I saw that Adam Schefter and many have reported they can't even do a contract extension until 2024. So good / bad thing. Good for the Niners probably. They get another year to properly price him, which we know will be a hot button topic of discussion.
Did you mean 2025?
Is it 2025? Oh, sorry, 2025. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say we're in 2024.
It's February. It's still like, I don't know if you do this at work sometimes. 2023. It's still that.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Mentally moving over. But anyhow, so it'll be interesting to see when that comes up. If that is, we'll see. If who knows? Maybe they'll be aggressive in free agency. They went out and surprisingly got Javon Hargrave last offseason, and they too, like, I know they have won the Super Bowl, but they too have done a really good job of roster construction in terms of overall, finding guys like Fred Warner late, and obviously Debo second rounder as well and such. It'll be interesting to see what their plan of attack is this offseason, because obviously you gotta at least make some sort of change. We'll see how drastic it is though. But anything else you wanted to throw in or mention before we call it there?
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how both teams move forward, because obviously with, both teams really talented, got some key pieces they gotta, re-sign. We'll see how the Niners move forward, because I know a lot of people, interestingly, are coming to see what we've been saying all along, and that's that, Brock Purdy, and I'm not saying this to trash Brock Purdy, but we've been saying it for a while, so I feel justified that it's not that different than when Jimmy Garoppolo was there. Like, you kind of got the same result. Now, will they move on from Brock Purdy? No. Like, that obviously that's not going to happen. because
Yeah.
we've talked about this, but who are you going to go get? You're not going to go get like injured.
We talked about this
Cousins.
off camera, but we talk about, and I'll just sum it this. Yeah, like who else is out there right now? Like, and they're not going to be able to trade up into the top 5, and even then, you're trusting a rookie quarterback, and they just went down this path with Trey Lance. They just went down this path, and it didn't. They got lucky that they got Purdy. That like it was like a lifeline. Like, oh man, like okay, at least we got this guy that can at least run the plays, be a competent quarterback, as we've seen, like you mentioned.
Yeah,
he's not an elite level.
And even for Purdy, I mean, it's only his second year, so who knows? Because let's be honest, Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time to start his career, was not what he once became. Like, he was viewed as a game manager even during that first Super Bowl, right? And so I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is going to become Tom Brady, because I think that's always a really unfair comparison that people make when they apply that to any late round QB. Like, trying to hold them to that standard is almost impossible. But I bring it up to say, just because a quarterback starts off as a game manager doesn't mean they can't elevate past that. I do think that, I mean, some people would disagree. I know Cam Newton does. I think that Dak Prescott has elevated past that. When he first started, he definitely was a game manager his first couple of years in the league, and I think that he's more than that now. So I don't know. I just, who knows? Brock Purdy could get even better, and we could be seeing the Niners finally figured out the next couple of years. We'll see.
Yeah, because Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson are not an upgrade, especially not for the price that they're going to be demanding. So we'll see what happens. Of course, free agency. I guess it's technically already started. I already see I don't mean to throw a stray here, Mitch Trubisky, but he's already been Steelers have already released him a day after the Super Bowl. Like, dang, I mean, I'm sure there's contract stuff, deadlines. So fortunately, there's gonna be a quick turnaround. So we will still be following NFL. We got free agency coming up. We got to do our draft stuff, of course, and we know this is going to be a loaded. Apparently, I haven't done a watching myself, but it's supposed to be a loaded, quote unquote, loaded quarterback class. Although the last quarterback class that was loaded was the Trevor Lawrence one, and we're all seeing that that one wasn't really loaded, wasn't it? But obviously, we'll be doing that. Try to do those rankings, and we're talking hoops too. Probably later this week. So that'll be fun. We can dive right into that, as that's the sport we turn to, because once again we don't follow baseball, and that's what we'll do. But anyhow, that'll do it for John and myself for today, and that's it for the 2023-2024 season. So congrats to the Kansas City Chiefs, the champions. We'll see you all next time, though. Adios.